Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Hey, Bruce.
Is that Lionel? Lionel, hello, Lionel. Is that you? Is that you?
Yeah, you can call me Bob if you want.
Can I call you Ray?
Yeah.
Can I call you Jay?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I think the next dog I get, I just had this thought the other day, and it's got nothing to do with Kevin Marks, although Hard Part is one of my favorites. I love everybody. Don't take it the wrong way. I love everybody. But I think I'm going to name my next dog Kevin.
All right.
I was walking along with my dog Lucy the other day, and I thought, what a great name for a dog, Kevin.
Yeah. Bob's another good dog name.
Yeah, Bob. Larry's a good name.
Doug.
Exactly.
But could I suggest we maybe just digressing from why we're here, or do we come to talk dog names?
Yeah, we came to talk dog
I
names.
almost like Data had the cat named Spot on Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh, did he?
He did.
Yeah, this will be an hour and a half of dog names.
Excellent. So for any of those at home who want to play, please contact us.
Yeah.
And send in your idea dog name, your ideal dog name.
Yeah, next week will be Industrial Fan Noise.
Sweet.
So when we were in Springfield.
We were in Springfield way back in January of 2020.
January 2020.
I assume you're talking this year, not the year before.
This year. Yes, this year. It's still this year. It's still 2020. Okay. Much has happened.
How did that happen?
Yeah, much has happened. Much has happened since Springfield.
Yes, it has.
My best guess that right now it's midsummer of 2020.
Okay.
So much has happened since Springfield.
Yes.
And it's too involved to go into.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. Like, I don't think we have time to recap everything that's happened so far in 2020.
No,
unless you stick with the first week.
The first month was probably okay.
Yeah, the Super Bowl was fun.
Yeah, and after that, it kind of went downhill.
Yeah, everything kind of unraveled in a hurry. So when we were there, I always encourage the fans of the podcast to come by the City Classics booth.
Yes.
Our buddy Jim Sacco, who very graciously allows us, all the AML gang, to hang out at the City Classics booth. And he, of course, is the owner of City Classics, which is an excellent model structure company.
He does build some great kits.
He builds some beautiful kits.
Or makes some great kits. He also builds them.
He builds them, and he builds some of what he makes. I also have we talked about this on some other podcast recently, but I also have I feel relatively confident that Jim Sacco is Batman.
Oh.
Two reasons, because I've been to his home, and he has this, it's in Pittsburgh, Carnegie, Pennsylvania, actually. And it's a lot of homes in Pittsburgh are built on the side of a hill. It's very hilly in Pittsburgh from the Valley of the Rivers.
Yes.
And Three Rivers Stadium, Heinz Field. And so he has one of these homes that was built by an electrician that's kind of built sort of in one of these areas that's sort of on the side of a hill. And this electrician, you go into his garage, which seems fairly standard. You can walk into it from the basement. And then it's a very standard garage, but then it goes back quite a ways, and then it makes a hard turn, and is built even back along the back of the house, the basement, which is under the patio. And I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's the Batcave.
Wow.
I'm really not even in the mood to argue about it. I'm convinced. I have managed to convince myself that's the Batcave. And Jim Sacco is Batman.
So next time we see him, he's going to say, "I'm Batman."
No, yeah. Well, honestly, seriously, ask yourself: Have you ever seen?
Well, yeah.
Have you ever seen Jim Sacco and Batman in the same place?
I can honestly say no. I have never seen Jim Sacco and Batman in the same place.
Exactly. Well, so while we were sitting in with Jim at the point when he was pretending, I guess he doesn't pretend to be Jim Sacco. He is Jim Sacco.
He is Jim Sacco,
but sometimes he's Batman. One of our listeners came up to me and introduced himself. His name was David Heyde, and I interviewed him a little bit at that time. And he contacted me. We contacted each other, and I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to him because he's in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. And
you mentioned that to me. He's a horn player, right?
Yeah. And I think the French horn. And he was, I believe, the past president of MKT Historical Society, and he's a model railroader. So I thought, hey, let's talk to David.
Very cool.
So, David, come on in from the
bringing up the cultural impulse.
Yeah. This will be our once a year cultural show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi, David. Welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I really enjoyed the snacks back there. You replenished recently, and there's lots of toilet paper. So I'm pretty
we found a couple skids and managed to get it in there just in case.
Yeah, that's great. We've been looking for that for a couple weeks, so might have to grab a couple rolls there and on my way out.
Yeah, I think
we can autograph them for you too.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
That would increase their market value.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah. How do you like our studio?
It's beautiful. I'm pretty impressed, honestly. Pretty impressed.
Did you take a direct flight into Busted Knuckle?
I did. Yeah, Dallas Fort Worth, we've got American Airlines hub, so I can fly anywhere.
Yeah.
One flight, you're in there.
Yeah, exactly. And you landed out there on Williams Avenue, Williams Boulevard.
That's right.
which on the odd hours, every half hour acts as an airport.
That's right.
Okay, David. So you live in Dallas Fort Worth?
Yeah, I've lived here since 2004, I believe. I did my graduate work at SMU, Southern Methodist University, but I've been in the DSO for going on 16 years, 16 what we call seasons. This is my 15th, which has rapidly come to a halt, it seems like. But I've been here since then. I started my first job was in Omaha Symphony, so right up there with Union Pacific, and I was there for a couple years, and then came to Dallas. So I've been here ever since.
And where were you born?
I was born in Morgantown, West Virginia. So you guys were just talking about Pittsburgh. All of my family's from Pittsburgh. So originally from that area, but we moved to Texas actually when I was 5. So for all intents and purposes, I've been down here in Texas most of my life. So
okay. So was it a plan to end up? I mean, obviously when you were younger, you didn't plan to become a member of a symphony orchestra, but as you went along and started off in that profession, was it just luck that you ended up back in Dallas, or was it?
Well, I always like to tell my students that there is always a little bit of luck involved with these jobs. They're hard to get, and it's like a needle in a haystack if you can get a good paying one. But I have a father; he's a musician, and I started actually on the cello when I was a kid, and it just didn't work out. And so I quit cello eventually, but then I picked up the horn, and I was actually pretty slow on it. So, but I started to take to it about my junior year in high school, and then I kind of realized that, well, this is the only thing I'm really good at. My grades were just okay, and I didn't have a lot of interest other than that. So decided to pursue it, and 6-7 years later, I started after high school. I started in the Omaha Symphony, and then I moved on to Dallas. But it was not clear to me. It became clear very late in my formative years when I wanted to start. So
your dad was a musician as well?
Yeah, he was a violinist, and now he's a conductor, and he's actually in academia. He's orchestra director at Baylor University down here in Waco, and that's kind of where I grew up. So that was kind of my love for the Katy. When I was a kid, we'd ride our bikes up to the Katy tracks and do all the things that kids do, put pennies on the track and stuff. And shortly thereafter, of course, the Katy was dissolved into the Union Pacific. So, but I have fond memories of seeing those green and yellow, actually a kaleidoscope of colors coming past pass the tracks as a kid. So that's what I model, and that's what I've been into. So
Yeah, because Katie's been green and yellow, red and white, and what other colors have they been?
Yeah, pretty much green and yellow was late. That was the Whitman era, which was the 70s on, 1970 or so, when it started to change. And then you had the red and white. And then you had, of course, trains like the Texas Special, which there's a little yellow in there. Early Katie had more yellow. And then they went to red and white. It was red and yellow, and then it kind of went to red and white. And of course, before that, it was just steam locomotive, so black. But yeah, they changed their colors quite a bit through the years. There was also kind of a dark maroonish color that they used a little bit as well. So
we'll get back to the Katie because I don't want to pass over that because that's going to be a fun subject to talk about.
Sure.
So your dad was a violinist in an orchestra?
Yeah, well, yeah, he taught a little bit of violin, but he made the decision to go into conducting in college, and so he's a conductor, and he's in academia, so he's college conductor, does the university orchestra, goes around and does stuff like that, all state orchestras for high schools, region orchestras, stuff like that, and then he does some professional conducting as well. So I grew up around it. I met a lot of famous musicians when I was a kid, but it didn't really take until very late. I just didn't have a huge interest in it until I got older, and
right.
I kind of it blossomed a little bit, and then I had some encouragement from teachers, and kept working hard and put my nose down and grinded for many years, and then ended up getting jobs, and I've been pretty lucky. So.
So are you like Brett Hall?
A little bit. I mean, so let me. I guess I could tell you a little bit of how this whole thing works. So when you go to college, you're surrounded by each school. Prominent music schools have anywhere from maybe 10 to 20 horn players in each school, and then you're working hard and you're practicing and you're learning. For auditions, you're learning passages of music that we call excerpts. So these excerpts are, passages of the hardest repertoire that we have to play in the orchestra. And for horn players, the orchestra, you're kind of the king of the brass in the orchestra. You are, it's a big deal to play in orchestra for horn. It's not a big deal to play in like jazz band or wind band or anything like that. But for orchestra, the horn is a big deal. So you learn these excerpts.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, go ahead, Bruce.
I noticed you're referring to as horn, whereas most people call it French horn. Which is the correct term?
So this is funny because Americans call it the French horn, even though the roots of the horn are nowhere near France. But for some reason, the name has been given to the horn as the French horn.
Okay.
So we don't go by French horn in the orchestra. We just go by horns. But to the lay person, French horn. Yeah.
All right.
And so either one. If you're in a jazz band, they call the horns. They say, "Hey, horns," and they're not talking about the French horn. They're talking about the trumpets, the trombones, and so But in the orchestra, the horn is the horn, And if you have a European conductor, sometimes they'll call you corny or corno if they don't speak good English. But that's just foreign languages for a horn. So anyway, so we're talking about the audition. So you have these excerpts, and you prepare and you prepare and you prepare and you perfect these excerpts, and then you go out and you send your resume out to orchestras. They'll advertise a job in the union publication in the United States and Canada. It's in the International Musician, which is a publication that's sent out monthly by the Federation of Musicians, the AFL, the local, national. It's based in New York, but it covers U.S. and Canadian orchestras mostly. Sometimes you'll see European orchestras advertising it as well. But if you see a job that you think you're qualified for, you're interested in, you send your resume. They'll screen your resume. If they feel that you're qualified, they'll invite you. If they feel you're really qualified, they might advance you to another round. If they think that you're young and you don't quite have the experience, or they're a little unsure about you, they make you make a tape. So you'll send a digital recording to the orchestras. They'll listen to it, and then they'll tell you, yeah, okay, you can come, or no, probably best you don't come yet. So that's the entry level of getting to the audition. That's just the first step. And then on your own dime, you'll fly to a city far away from where you live, probably. You'll stay in a hotel on your own dime. You'll get all your meals, and it could be anywhere from 1 to 4 days. You go to the concert hall. They'll give you the list of the excerpts they want to hear after you've prepared a list that they've given you prior to the audition. Everything's behind a screen, so it's anonymous. And you'll play for anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes. And if they like you enough, they vote you on, you advance to the next round, which is the semifinals usually. It's behind a screen. If they like you, they advance you to usually the final round. And if they like you after that, you get the job. It's pretty hard to get a job, I have to say. So in the United States and Canada, there are probably 12 to 15 orchestras that pay a really great wage. And then everything else is a little bit, it starts to scale down from there. So when you figure of the top 12 to 15 orchestras that can actually staff 6 horns, that's not that many jobs in the United States and Canada. So, maybe 60 to 100 really good jobs in the United States. So it's, as you can imagine, very competitive. And it's, like I said, it's like getting that needle in a haystack if you can win the job. So we call it winning a job. We don't say you've been hired or, hey, this person hired me. It's you win the job because it feels like winning the lottery when you win the job. Yeah. Especially when
you say excerpts. Yeah. When you say excerpts, I'm assuming it's various of the classical composers are picking a piece for you to play, and that's what you work on?
Yeah, so for the horn, it's a lot of Gustav Mahler, it's a lot of Richard Strauss, it's a lot of Tchaikovsky, Beethoven, Brahms, all the big composers, and then you'll usually play a concerto too, which is usually a Mozart concerto or a Richard Strauss concerto. So, right. And if you have a bad day, or you chip a couple notes, or you're not playing something well in time, or you don't have good rhythm or intonation, you're going to get cut. And right. I took an audition. This was many years ago, but this was for the Milwaukee Symphony. It was for third horn. So it's the third chair. We call it third horn. There were, after screening, so after they'd screened applicants, they invited 99 horn players for one chair.
Wow.
And I was the runner-up. So I didn't get the job, but I was the last person standing after that. And so it can be really, really crazy, and you can have a really great first round and second round and then bomb in the finals and you don't get the job. And so, it's really competitive, and you're competing from not just the younger people that are coming out of school or still in school, but you're competing against other professionals that are in mid-level orchestras, smaller orchestras, even other professional high-level orchestras if you want a really top-level job. So you're always competing against, the best players, the most what I call in-shape players that are really, raring to go and are on their A game. So, one reason I haven't taken a lot of auditions since I got to Dallas was I'm in a really good job. So, you start a family and you settle down, and, you're going to lose a little bit of that audition edge. You still have to perform the orchestra. But, it takes hours and hours. It's akin to being a professional athlete. You are spending hours and hours and hours practicing and perfecting and going through these hoops that you have to jump through over and over again. So when you go in and you're a little nervous or the adrenaline's flowing, you're able to do it. And I always like to say, if your 80% is better than everybody else's 100%, then you're set to go.
Yeah. So during a typical orchestra season, obviously there's a number of concerts, but how often would you be practicing? Every day working on something, or depending on the way? Because I know they do a concert series and they do that a few times, and then they move on.
Yeah, exactly. So in Dallas, we start around September 1st, and then we go to about July 4th. And then we have a few weeks off in between there. But the bulk of our vacation is after July 4th until September 1st. And then we pretty much work nonstop. There's a few weeks. We get a week at Christmas, and we get a couple weeks here and there. But mostly we're working. So in the DSO, we will start a program on our Monday's our day off every week. We will start a program Tuesday morning, and then we'll we'll rehearse Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, and then we'll play concerts Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. Rinse and repeat, new program the next week. And it's pretty intense. It goes by really quick, and you have to be ready to go. And if you get behind, it becomes pretty apparent. So a lot of the pieces that we play, we've played them many times, so we kind of know what we have to do to prepare. Some weeks we don't have a matinee on Sunday. Some weeks, it's a little bit less. But generally, we do anywhere from 2 to 4 concerts a week. So I would say probably, let's see, it's probably 42 weeks a season, times, I would say roughly 3. So, it's, 120, 130 or so concerts. Yeah. So it's a lot of concerts.
So what's your favorite horn piece to play, and which one gives you a challenge every time?
Well, a lot of them give me a challenge every time. I mean, they all have different. It's funny because people always ask, and my wife is in the orchestra with me, and she's a violinist too, and we always are asked this. What's your favorite piece to play? It's kind of like asking me what my favorite locomotive is.
Right.
It's just like I like them all, and I open. I'd take one of each if I could. But for me, there's certain pieces I love playing, some of the Richard Strauss stuff, but it's not the stuff you'd think, like the 4 Last Songs I love playing with soprano. It's a wonderful, beautiful piece. I like Hindemith a lot. Love his music. I love playing Mozart. Mozart is really challenging because it's simple, but it's not. And if the horns clam a note, everybody knows. So
yeah,
you're kind of walking on eggshells on that kind of music, but it's such great music that I just love playing that stuff. I don't enjoy actually, and my colleagues will probably disagree with me, but I don't enjoy playing some of the really heavy stuff like Mahler and stuff like that, Tchaikovsky. It's great music, and I like playing it, but it's not my favorite stuff to play. So
how about the theme from Star Trek?
I've played it many times. Which theme though, Lionel? I've played them all. You like the new one with the horn solo at the beginning?
I kind of like the original.
Yeah, we've played that many times. We did. I don't know if you know who Eric Kunzel is, but he did a ton of Star Trek recordings with the Cincinnati Symphony.
Yes,
and I remember he came. He's passed on now, but he came down and we did every single just what I like to call all the bloodbath music from every single Star Trek movie in one concert. And it was the most tired I've ever been after one program in my life. It was unbelievable. It's really hard music. And, I'm a big Trekkie and I love that stuff. But boy, that was a tough concert. So, and I've done the new stuff too. I really like that new horn solo in the reboot. That's a lot of fun to play. And I've done that a few times. So.
Yeah, I like a lot of the Mozart stuff, of course, but I think my favorite horn bit is from Beethoven Symphony 6, where you get those horns going in the.
There you go. Yeah,
it gets me every time.
Yeah, we have our principal horn, which principal is first chair. So there's a principal in every section. Our principal horn left last year, and he went to the Chicago Symphony, which is a really high honor. But he's a fantastic player. But he's left, and we're having an audition now next year for a new principal French horn, and that piece is on the excerpt list for sure. So any horn players listening, I just gave you one of the pieces we're going to be. But yeah, that's a great piece. Played it many times. Fun piece to play.
So they wouldn't promote somebody that's already in the orchestra to.
Well, you have to take the audition. So I am the associate principal. So I am the other first horn, and I've been doing some of the job of principal this year until. This quarantine, but
right.
So yeah, I'm the other first horn. So it's a job. Quite frankly, it's very stress filled, and I don't really want to do that. It's just not something that I kind of like my life the way it is. And if I were to accept a job like that, you can kiss Model Railroad and goodbye. I just wouldn't have time for that at all. So yeah. I like to have a good balance in my life. And being associate's great because although I don't get to choose what I get to play, I kind of get to run the section when I'm up there and play the solos when I have the chance. And and be first horn. So it's worked out well for me. My first job was principal, but it was in a lesser orchestra, so it was way easier to handle. But when you're in what we call the top tier, which we are in the top tier of orchestras, the demands are quite significant, stress wise. So.
Do you mind if I ask you, like, I fully, not being a pickup driving Harley riding guy, I'm not really I love going to listening to symphony orchestras, but I mean, I don't really fully. What would the extra duties be of being the main horn? Like you have to organize.
Well,
you organize.
You organize rotations, we call them. So who plays what every week? That's a lot of work, actually. I've been doing that this year, and I'll have to do it a little bit next year too. But it's a lot of work because a lot of you're managing 6 people. You're trying to get them time off when they ask for it. You're trying to, work around things. If somebody doesn't like a certain piece or they don't like playing it, then we got to work around that. There's a lot of, it's dealing with a lot of personalities. And the biggest thing really is dealing with the music directors. They can be very tough and demanding. So you're kind of responsible, not just for yourself and playing well, but if somebody's not doing well, you're going to get a little bit of heat as well. So you're kind of like, you have to think of the first horn or first chair kind of being like upper level management with the CEO on the podium. And so, you're going to get called in first before somebody else. But there's also just a lot of stress playing the solos. When recording started in the 60s and 50s, the level started to increase in orchestras exponentially. And especially now, technically, musicians are expected to be very, very proficient. So, we talk about baseball. I'm a big baseball fan. If you're batting 300, you're doing really well in baseball. If we're not batting, 998, you may have a problem now. So you need to be well over 95, 96% in what I call your accuracy when you're on the stage, especially the higher up you go. So, we're expected to really, really play almost, if you were to come, Lionel or Bruce, and come and sit down in the Meyerson Symphony Center where we play, and you sit down, you would think probably, and I'm not trying to boast, but I think you would think that it was a recording.
Right,
because
exactly.
of the proficiency. So, and this would be the same in Toronto or,
for sure.
Any of the major orchestras. So, I'm always amazed and in awe of my colleagues and what they can do on their instruments. And sometimes you just think to yourself, boy, I just got to keep up here because that's really fantastic what this person's doing. Sits 2 chairs away from you or 2 rows ahead of you or halfway across the stage. So, it's always inspiring to hear really great musicianship and, some of the guest artists that come in, you got to sometimes, pull your jaw off the ground because it can be astonishing how great they play. I think I would encourage the listeners, if they haven't been to a concert, go to one, support your local orchestra. I think you'd be amazed at what you hear coming out of these instruments. And 9 times out of 10, it's not amplified. There's no electronics involved. It's all natural, organic music. So
I think it's pretty hard not to enjoy symphony orchestra because if you just enjoy music, period, I mean, instrumental music that's played in really, really well, it's what's not to enjoy.
That's right.
Well, yeah. I can answer that. I've been to a few concerts down in Toronto with Gene, and most of them are great. The one I absolutely hated, we went down one night, it was some soprano. She was wailing away for the first half of the show. It was just brutal. And the only thing that kept me from walking out was because Beethoven's 6 was the second half of the show. But this one, this woman, she was just horrendous. It was just horrendous music. And oh my God, it was just brutal. But yeah, you get a good program. Like I've been there and there's a lot of programs I enjoy. And some of them you look at, I don't really like that, so I won't go to that one. But
yeah, but that's okay, yeah. Bruce. You've got your flavors that you like and you stick to it. And at least you go, a lot of people don't go, so it's good that you go occasionally.
Well, and I was under the impression that if I go to listen to a symphony orchestra, I'm not going to listen to a singer. I'm going to listen to the symphony orchestra.
Yeah, so but sometimes they throw a curveball at you.
Yeah, the general formula for orchestra concerts, a traditional orchestra concert will be an overture or a short piece, and then you'll have a solo piece. So that could be a pianist with the orchestra, a violinist, a cellist, a soprano, whatever. A singer usually, do a concerto, and then the second half will be a symphony, or Beethoven, a Brahms, whatever, Shostakovich, anything like that. So that's kind of the basic formula. Sometimes we don't do that. Sometimes we'll do 2 tone poems in a concerto, or any kind of number of. But that's kind of the basic formula. So you will usually hear a concerto if you go to an orchestra concert. So,
and can you do Wipeout?
You talk about with da 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 da. Yeah. We do all kinds. So we have a pop series. We do.
Exactly.
We have a classical series, and then what we've been doing a lot of now. It's gotten really popular in the last 5 years. Is we will do a movie with the movie above the orchestra, and we will play the soundtrack down from start to finish.
Yeah,
we've done a lot of the Star Wars movies. We did all kinds. We did Home Alone at Christmas time. We've done Wizard of Oz. We've done all kinds of stuff. So that's been becoming really popular. The Star Wars ones sell out. We've done Indiana Jones. Any of the John Williams stuff always sells really well. And so orchestras have really latched onto this. And so we're doing them a lot more. And it's actually can be really hard music. But again, you'll be amazed at
absolutely
how good it sounds, compared to the soundtrack. So
I would take exception with you, Bruce. I think if you went to any of the top symphony orchestras in North America, you'd be hard pressed not to walk away happy with whatever it is they present.
I every time I've been to Toronto, I've always enjoyed the program, except this one time, this was just an horrendous piece of music they had going.
Was this the Toronto Symphony Orchestra?
It was the Toronto Symphony. It was a horrendous piece of music.
It might have been something on the newer side.
She was singing some 3 poems or something, and it was just terrible. It was just terrible.
Well, I don't think it was the 4 last songs like that. I think you would have loved that. So yeah, no. It just, there's stuff that we play that I don't like, but you have to do your job. But there's weeks where I'm just like, oh boy, and we see so many different conductors, so many different soloists. There's weeks where we love the music, but you work with this one conductor and you're just like, oh God, just get me through this week. And then in the next week, you may not like the music as much, but the conductor's wonderful. And you're like, okay, well, that was great, even though it's, my least favorite composer, but I had a good time with this new conductor. So
okay. Obviously, the Dallas Symphony has its own usual conductor. Let's say now, how many times you get guest conductors in over the year to do something?
It just depends on the year. So this year we're between music directors. Our new music director starts next year in earnest. He's Italian. His name's Fabio Luisi, and our previous music director was Jaap van Zweden, who is now with the New York Philharmonic, and he's Dutch. So completely different styles, even though they're both European, completely like polar opposite. Both very demanding, but in different ways. But this year we're between, so we've seen a lot of guest conductors this year. But on a typical year, music directors usually do anywhere from 10 to 14 weeks, and then the rest is guest conductors. So we see a good cross section, and some orchestras will see a little bit better quality than others. As far as guest conductors. So there's kind of in the top tier or upper tier, I'd say there's kind of 2 levels. There's what we historically called the Big 5 orchestra. The Big 5 orchestra are the usual suspects, except for there's really about 7 to 8. And that's New York Philharmonic, Philadelphia Orchestra, Boston Symphony, Cleveland Orchestra, LA Philharmonic now, San Francisco Symphony, another one that's kind of crept in. Chicago Symphony, of course. I would say LA and San Francisco are 6 and 7 historically. And then you have kind of the next tier, which is like the Pittsburgh Symphony, the Dallas Symphony, the Houston Symphony, a St. Louis Symphony, Seattle Symphony. So there's kind of another level, Baltimore, National Symphony would be probably near, in that kind of just upper second tier. So, where do you
think Toronto would fit in?
Toronto would be rated towards the tail end of that. So I would say kind of the top of the third tier. So Toronto, Milwaukee.
So we got like Major League, AAA, AA type thing.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Except for I would say Toronto is Major League. I would say
right.
but it's kind of like. So I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. It would be like kind of like the Pittsburgh Pirates, small market, right? Or Milwaukee Brewers or something like that.
All right. Versus the Yankees or somebody like that.
Yeah, which is Philharmonic or Chicago Symphony is the Cubs or something. So you can always correlate it back to baseball. So so I and then it kind of goes down from there, and this has been a kind of a tough time, with a lot of musicians are furloughed right now. So we've been lucky that our board and our CEO has continued to take care of us. So we're very fortunate and lucky and thankful. But it's been kind of tough because you can't have any gatherings, so you can't really hear us. And the orchestra, of course, is 100 people, so we can't even get together to play. So, anyways, it's an interesting life. We do European tours, we do international tours. We go to Carnegie next year. We're going to Carnegie Hall and playing a concert.
Well, that would be cool.
Yeah, we've done that a few times, and it's always fun to go to Carnegie.
I'll need tickets up front.
I'll be happy to see what I can do for you, Larry.
All right, cool.
No problem. And then the orchestra goes to Vail, Colorado every summer for about a week to 10 days. We play concerts up there. There's a summer festival in Vail, so we get to hobnob with all the well-to-do, wealthy people over July 4th weekend. So we do concerts up there.
Well, our very own Bruce modeler, simply known as Kelly, was close personal friends with Paul Newman.
Really?
Well, he knew Paul Newman.
Yeah.
But as often I do, I like to take writers, what do you call it? Writers license and embellish the story slightly.
I like his pasta sauce. It's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. I had it, and it's Caesar salad dressing is excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Newman's Own.
I actually have a great Paul Newman story, but
and he's also into racing, so there you go.
Yeah, he was.
There you go.
And
absolutely.
He raced well into his late 60s and early 70s.
He did too. He was a good driver.
Yes, he did. Okay, well, that's all the time we have.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Okay, so your dad's, are you going to force your kids to be musicians too, just like your dad did?
I have a broad range of kids. I've got a 13-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 9-month-old. So I've got the whole spectrum right now, from acne down to dirty diapers. But my 13-year-old plays the violin and piano. But we are not forcing anything on anyone. She's also really into art. She takes art lessons and painting and stuff like that. So she's done that. Our 4-year-old has not started anything, although her grandmother wants her to start something. On my wife, who's a very accomplished violinist, her parents were both musicians too. So her grandmother is really raring to go on starting her on a string instrument. And then, of course, the 9-month, he just kind of looks at you. So
yeah, sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
As most 9 months would do.
That's right. Although we have a feeling he's been singing pitches back to us that we sing. Right. So, yeah, there may be some perfect pitch there. I don't know yet.
Still be into heavy metal like Ozzy Osbourne or something.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, David, you and I could hang out, and I would be like you'd be more like the dapper guy, like our buddy Hardpart, and I'd be the dusty guy, and people would be going like, "Why are you hanging around with him?" But you seem like a very level-headed young man.
Oh, thanks. And thanks for calling me young, Lionel.
I know.
That made my night. Yeah,
I was just trying to be nice.
Well, if I ever get asked the Kelly questions, I'm scared about one of the questions. You just mentioned dapper, so I'll save that for later. But
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right. So I guess my question though is, when I kind of said that about your kids, and I'm convinced you're just like Brett Hall. So
Brett Hall played hockey in Dallas. So
I know he did. You're talking to a Canadian. I know what Brett Hall did, and in St. Louis.
Yep, that's right.
And he won his cup in Dallas, and he was a good player. Right. He's like Max Domi, who is Ty Domi's son, and Max is Ty Domi was more of an enforcer guy and had his main part of his career in Toronto, but his son Max plays for the Montreal Canadiens and is a very, very good player.
Yes, he is.
So my question was, or is going to be, while your dad was a musician, what about your mom?
My mom was an elementary school teacher.
Okay. So where do you feel like your interest in train started?
Well, I had an HO scale layout in my parents' basement before we moved to Texas. And this must have been 1983, 1982. So it was, a lot of Tycho and that era. And so we moved to Texas. Texas has no basements, which is a total drag,
right?
A total bummer. I mean, there are very, very few, either very, very old or specifically they were built with somebody that really wanted a basement. But there's so much rock in Texas right under the soil. And I also think the water table has something to do with it, but I think it's mostly the rock, that they have never built basements in Texas. So when we moved to Texas, I ended up building a new layout. It was, and it was on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and I did that for a while. And then you go through the normal progression that you talk about on your show all the time about girls and cars,
right? Yeah,
and then college, and then finally I settled down and I started getting back into trains again. And growing up on the Katy main line, and seeing those trains go by when I was a kid, and doing the model railroading with my dad a little bit, it kind of stuck with me. And so I got back into it. I think I was in a Barnes & Noble or something equivalent at the time, and I was looking through the magazines, killing time, and I saw, I think at the time, Model Railroader. And I picked it up, and this was probably in my mid-20s, started thumbing through it. I was like, this is so awesome. I got to do this again. So at the time, I was in Omaha, and my salary in Omaha was $29,000 a year. So there was no way that I was going to be able to afford building a really great layout. It was just starting out. So I bought a little bit and collected and was going to build something. And then I ended up getting the job in Dallas, and I was so career focused at that point, trying to get out of Omaha. No offense to Omaha. I love it. It's a great city, but
yeah.
But for salary,
Absolutely.
So I ended up winning the job in Dallas. And then after a few years, after I had gotten tenure and I'd been here long enough, I started to get back into it. So I ended up joining because we didn't have a basement. I didn't really have time or energy to build a layout at the time, starting a young family and stuff. I joined a model railroad club in Dallas, Fort Worth, called the Texas Northern Model Railroad Club. And they're still here. Right. At the time, they were in a town called Mesquite, Texas, like the tree.
Yeah.
And so I was in that club for many years. It was a tough place. The club was in a building that was not heated or cooled. So if you can imagine going to run trains or work on a layout or have a club meeting in Texas in the middle of the summer, it was pretty awful. You'd have to be out of the train room by 10 a.m. or else you would just be miserable in the summer. And then in the winter, I can remember running trains with a parka on if it was 20 degrees out, but you want to go run trains. So I was in that club for several years, and then I had a little change in my personal life that made me have to sell my trains and get out of things a little bit, and stopped the club for a while. And about 7-8 years later, recently, about 2-3 years ago, I guess it was 2 years ago, I rejoined the club. The club had moved actually to a mall because malls are dying in the United States. So we were in a mall, and it was wonderful. The layout had changed a little bit, but the layout's pretty big. You can go to our website. It's texasnorthern.org. That's our website.
Okay.
And
do you know why it's .org?
I do, Lionel. It's
okay.
Because we are very, very organized. So anyways, we were in the Collin Creek. It's called the Collin Creek Mall, and it's in the town Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas.
Right.
But they decided to bulldoze the mall, so we ended up moving late spring, early summer into a new building, and we are now officially in Dallas. It's in kind of a light industrial area, and we've moved the layout successfully into that new room. It's a fairly large layout. It's about 2,500, 3,000 square feet of layout. So it's a pretty big layout. We have about 60 members, and the politics are very limited. It's been really great. Everybody gets along, and we work together, and it's a really fun place to be. And that's all ages, so it's nice.
That's good. I mean, that's cool when politics has not become a a problem, and it's a fun place to be. I mean, that changes everything, because then it becomes a place that people want to be, and the thing just grows upon itself because everybody's pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody gets along. It's all smiles, and we have a good time. So we're there now. Hopefully we don't have to move for a while. But the club, I think, has been around for a long time, 30 or 40 years. And it's moved around quite a bit. But
And you moved this layout? I'm looking at the plan now, and you guys moved this layout?
Yeah, we moved it. So the layout was originally a modular layout. It was a modular club. And eventually it became, the membership has really ebbed and flowed. This is almost the most people we've ever had in it, but it's teetered a few times. But now we're really healthy with 60 members. But yeah, it breaks apart into sections, little tables, each section. We don't have any backdrops really, but we have three main lines. So we have an inner and outer main, and then we have a mountain run. So we have a mountain that goes, kind of in the middle of the layout. Then we have a really large yard, passenger station. I mean, it's got everything. It's not complete. We've had to do some renovations on it recently. We can run both DC and DCC on the layout. So you just, with flip of a switch, the inner main can be DC and the outer main can be DCC. So the wiring is just unbelievable. The gentleman that did it, Mike Cook, he's passed on now, but he was an electrical genius, and the wiring is just it blows me away. It just, every time I open a panel and look at it, it's just incredible.
I hope he left good notes for you, did he?
Our superintendent, he works on really expensive private airplanes in Dallas, and so he has been great to have in the club. His name's Rex Rutledge. He's been able to really keep on it, but boy, way over my head. I run DCC, and to me that's pretty simple to do two wires like that and run some drops in, but I can't imagine what all that entails.
Yeah, and I see here you guys are using your phones to operate the layout. And do you have operating sessions?
We do. We operate every Tuesday night when allowed to. So every Tuesday night we have operations. We are running WeThrottle / Engine Driver, I guess is what it's called for Android. I have an iPhone, so I don't know. But we have wireless throttles, and then you can use the regular throttles that the club can provide you too. On the operating session, we're pretty much DCC only because everybody's running around the layout, so the operating is only DCC. I think the DC is still there, but I think eventually it's like it's phasing out.
So now you're saying the hobby. So I mean, you're an interesting person to ask my $1 million question to, because we also don't want to forget to cover about the fact that you were president of the Heyde Historical Society. So your feeling as kind of being in and out of the hobby as you've been going along, do you feel like the hobby is growing? It's solid. It's stable. It's shrinking.
I think it's. The thing that amazed me when I got back in a couple years ago after being out for about 7 to 10 years, the DCC side of things, the sound side of things, just incredible. And I do think, having gone to Springfield now, my first time, I mean, I can't compare to previous Springfields, but just seeing that, it's got to be growing. And all of the releases that the manufacturers are doing, I mean, Athearn will do, 6 HO releases in a month. And I'm just blown away by seeing these manufacturers just be able to release so much product. It's got to be growing to me. I mean, compared to where we were in 2003, 2004, 2005, when I was really heavily into the hobby, to me, it's got to be growing. And all the small manufacturers I've seen pop up, it's just amazing. So I've been building my layout now for about a year. I'm a year in, and just the products that come out, even in that time span, what I've been able to change, some of the Woodland Scenics products that have come out, some of the, the scenery products that have changed, static grass, all this stuff that's so cool. I've never seen, to me, it's like you said, Lionel, to me, it's like an explosion, of product. And everybody that knows that I do this, my colleagues in the orchestra or my friends, when they come over, when they're allowed to, when they come over and they see it, they're kind of blown away by and I'm not a great modeler. I'm pretty average, but just you can make yourself look like a great modeler now with how many great products are on the market.
Yeah, it's I think that's an excellent point to make, is that it's easier for people to enjoy the hobby now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's amazing. I mean, I put in my first sound decoders in. I never thought I could do that, but and that's one thing that a club has benefit to people. So I learned how to do those Tsunami 2 decoders into a ready to run locomotive, from 5 years ago from a club member. I sat down with our superintendent and I tried it on my own. He showed me what I did wrong after it didn't quite work right. And then I was able to put in 4 more. And so, I think it's not just the product, but it's also the people. I'm a big car guy, and I've always been really into cars, but the car guy community is not as friendly as the model railroading community to me. And I've been into the big, I was really into the car community and still am sort of, but to me, everybody I meet, just about everybody, is so friendly in the model railroad and so open. And, I got back on Facebook recently just to join the MKT modelers group and the MKT, historical pages and stuff, fans of the MKT and stuff like that. And I'll post stuff on there and other people will post stuff on there, and everybody's so nice and welcoming. And you don't always get that with the car community. You could be a Corvette guy or a 911 guy, and you're not necessarily going to get it, or a Ford or a Chevy guy, and you're not going to get along real well. So,
right.
But
well, this is a perfect example of what I've said for quite some time. I think I've said this pretty much my entire life, actually. One of the great things about this hobby, and there's many great examples, and I pull no punches. I mean, I know who I am. I'm not the dapper guy. I'm the dusty guy, but I'm a redneck, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my position in life. But the beauty of this hobby is that, and I'll use the example I've used before, Chris Adams, a lawyer in Connecticut, and him and I are great friends. I'd say we're very good friends, and it would never have happened had it not been for the hobby. The barriers are pulled down. I mean, you can have somebody who's and I only use these examples because I'm trying to draw a very wide comparison. But I mean, you can have somebody that's interested in if you're interested in the Heyde Jeep 35s of such an era, and you're a UPS driver in somewhere in Texas, and there's a surgeon in Boston that happens to be interested in the same thing, and you two guys find each other. Not only will you have the same interest, but there's a good chance you'll become lifelong friends and good friends.
Absolutely. I mean, having been in the Katy Railroad Historical Society and in the MKT, I mean, there are guys from all walks of life. I mean, I'm a musician, Lionel. I don't know anything. I couldn't tell you anything about life as a railroader. I've never done it. I think it's really neat. But I was the president of the Katy Railroad Historical Society. I mean, and it was so, at the time, I was blown away that they wanted me to do it, because it's intimidating. I mean, I'm not a railroader, and
right.
Half of those guys at that historical society are former employees of the railroad. But everybody was so friendly, and they really encouraged me to do it. So, and it's the same thing with model railroading. At our club, there's 60 guys. There's a cross section. We had a little guy join. I think his name was Zach. He's probably 12, but his dad had to join. So when he goes up there to run his trains, his dad has to be there with him.
Sure.
And so we have anywhere from him all the way up to guys in their 80s, and there's a whole cross section, not just with age, but with, you have a private, airplane mechanic that works on billionaires' airplanes, to a
sure.
musician,
yeah,
to a lawyer, to, guys that actually work in the railroad, to, we have a Texas DPS trooper
right. Yeah.
So yeah, you meet all kinds of people. And, I think the thing that I like the most, there's a guy in our club, his name is Steel Craver, and he's one of the foremost experts on the Katy. And so whenever I have a question, I just text Steel. I say, Steel, did the Katy have such and such during this time? Did you ever see these cars or could I run these on my railroad? And he'll be able to tell me because, the Katy left in '88 and I was 10 and, I didn't, 10 or 11. And by the time I was 13, it was gone.
Yeah.
So, I think we talked about this at Springfield that historical societies need to cozy up to the model railroaders a little bit more because the model railroading is soon going to be the only thing that people remember of these lines because, one more generation goes by and nobody's going to know what the Katy was or the Mopac or the, whatever. You name any of them, So except for the big 4 or 5 railroads, 6 railroads left.
I just had a thought that I never had before. Maybe I've had it in different forms. Bruce and David, I'm interested in if I'm completely off the mark or if this sounds like anything. The farther we get away from that generation of the 70s and 80s and the last days of so many railroads, and if we talked about Star Trek earlier, you take that example. I mean, maybe in generations to come, it'll become more of a magical time that more and more people will want to model because, just like you talk about, people are fascinated with Star Wars, which is just an imagination of your time, of your brain. Maybe people will become, I wouldn't be that shocked that people will become more and more interested in that time and that era of railroading, only because you can't reproduce it other than through model railroading or through your models.
Oh, look what Tom Jacobs is doing with the Reading.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, and it doesn't have to, I think some of the prototypical modelers, they get too caught up in if it's right or not. To me, I tell my friends and other people that I'm trying to capture the essence. I'm trying to capture my memory, the feeling that you had as a kid or the feeling that you had when that railroad was around. And so I'm modeling the Texas subdivision of the Katy in the 1980s, right before merger. So I'm trying to capture the essence of my childhood a little bit and get those wide open plains, tall grass, tree here or there. It's a plains railroad mainly with I've got kind of the essence of the Brazos River, which went right through Waco where I grew up. And that's really all I'm going for. I don't have enough space to really do this is from, Belmead Yard to Smithville, Texas, and I'm going to hit every single interchange on the way. Most of us don't have that kind of energy or that kind of resources to do something like that. And so I think you can walk into a place like that and you're blown away and it's pretty amazing. But you can also have something that just occupies one wall.
Yeah.
And if you're capturing the essence of that railroad or whatever you want to capture, then you're model railroading. You're doing something that's special, and it really only needs to be special to you.
So how much was your dad into the hobby then?
My dad and his brother were fairly into it, but his brother was a really, really fantastic modeler. I remember going to his house and he had cases of models just put together, like exquisite, just plastic models, 1/18 size or stuff like that. But he also had a layout. My non-blood uncle, so my cousin's dad had a huge layout in his basement. It was a mountain layout. I don't remember what road it was. My dad just kind of dabbled in it. I don't think he was ever really serious with it, but he did have a model railroad. I think he probably got that from his brother-in-law, seeing that what his brother-in-law had built is. So, there's always been some model making in my family. But yeah, I think a lot of us, we model what we saw when we were kids. That's generally the consensus, I think. And it also, it relaxes me. If I'm having a stressful week at work or I've got a lot on my mind, I'll go out. My layout's in my garage. I'll go out to my garage. I'll just work for an hour or two.
Sure.
Or even 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Or I'll put a train on and I'll run in a circle for an hour while I listen to some music or not, or listen to the podcast, which I do a lot. So,
and that reminds me of a conversation I had back in the early 90s with the then president of the Model Railroad Hobby group. They're defunct now, but he was telling me, because our club was getting harassed by the others at the local art center that we weren't art, we shouldn't be in there, that kind of stuff. So, he was saying that he figured model railroading always be popular because some guy comes home, just like you're saying, he's had a rough day or whatever. He goes into his basement or train room, and it's his own world. He's in control. He can forget everything else for a period of time.
That's absolutely right.
And he's absolutely right.
Yeah. You know, with the orchestral musicians, we don't really have a say in much of what happens, right? So I'm one of the solo horns. So when I have a solo, I can kind of do what I want, but the tempo is dictated to us. They'll tell you how to do something. They might want it softer. They might want it louder, the conductor. He wants it a certain way. You may not agree with it, but you got to nod and just do your job. And so you come home, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to take charge and do this my way. And I think that's exactly right. We all have bosses, right? So you have to make the boss happy. And so, you know, but I'm my own boss when I'm in that room. So
I'm not going to ask you a couple orchestra questions only because it's me. So did you ever, like, you're doing a solo and you kind of like just break out into a Neil Diamond song or something?
No, not yet. Not yet. No, that would not be.
Although Sweet Caroline of the Horn would probably be pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I've probably played that before, but you know, it's a pretty varied life. But yeah, we usually don't deviate from what's written.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually don't deviate.
And now I'm going to ask you a real honest to
That's
good.
like. I have to tell you, Lionel, that's like running a red signal. Okay, you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. And now I'm going to ask you, this is a real honest to goodness question. I've always wondered, because I'm like, it's the guy, like during the concert, like obviously you guys rehearse and everything, and when the concert comes on, you're well prepared. So is the guy that's the conductor, is he just literally waving a stick around and you guys are pretending?
That's a trade secret.
Okay.
It just depends. You know, it just depends. That's all I can tell you.
All right. Sure.
The orchestra at this level, we can play most things on our own, but you still need somebody, even if they're, you know, a mouth breather or they're drooling while they're looking at you. You still need a cutoff and a start, and you still need sometimes just to look up if things get a little bit, you know, off. You got to look up, because there are nights where stuff's not perfect, and so they're important. But you know, look, how can I put this? I think that, like anything else in the world, there are positions that are there. We make more of them than they really are, and conductor might be one of those. I think they're very important, but they're also, you know, conductors are like CEOs, and they're paid like CEOs.
Right.
And orchestral musicians, the principals are paid very well, but you know, it's not anywhere near what conductors are paid.
Sure.
So and same with soloists too. Soloists are paid very well too. But they also are very, very talented. Now, there are a lot of really great music directors, really, really great conductors that are worth every penny. But you know, it's just, you have to. There's a balance. So
some nights he's just waving a stick around.
Remember.
Each conductor will bring something different to it, and I'm just thinking, you know, you hear, say, Beethoven's Fifth done by, with Leonard Bernstein in control versus Von Karajan in control. Same music, but you know, totally
way different.
Two different feels.
Way different. Way different. And you know, it's like I told you earlier. So it's like I said, maybe I'm doing a piece I don't really like with a great conductor, it's fine. Or maybe I'm doing a piece I really like with a bad conductor, not so fine.
Sure.
It just depends, you know, and it's kind of like a relationship. Sometimes relationships really click and work, and other times you're like, okay, this is enough of this. I'm out of here. and that's kind of what it is. It's a relationship for a week. If he's your music director, though, you got to make that relationship work.
Yeah, exactly. And now,
because that's your boss.
Yeah,
so you have to make that relationship work.
The problem for me now is I'm going to be looking every time I go to something like that. I'm going to be looking at the conductor, asking myself, now, is this a guy a mouth breather or a drooler?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I need to forward this link onto our PR department. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
They might call me and say, "Hey, we need to have a conversation."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fortunately, nobody's listening.
Nobody else in the orchestra is a model railroader.
Yeah, nobody's listening.
You know, our retired second clarinet, I think he was a little bit of he sat right in front of me, and he would always pull up model railroader or railroad model craftsman, and then when he was done reading them, he'd pass them back to me, and I'd read them. So
During the show or like an intermission?
No, not during the show.
Hey, check out page 20 here.
Yeah. Hey,
I have a really funny joke, but I can't tell it on while you're
perfect.
recording.
All right,
I'll tell you that
cool.
later.
All right. So I just want to get straight here. So you had you basically had two uncles that were in the hobby?
Well, I had it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's cool. That is cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. My dad's brother, he lived in San Diego though, but I didn't get to see I know he had a layout. I never saw it.
Okay.
And we were growing up in Texas, but he was a colorful guy. He had a 58 Corvette that he passed away, but he left it to my dad. So we had that for quite a while. Yeah.
How cool is that?
It was red with the white swoops on the side. And that car was just a blast to drive. My dad sold it last year. I don't know why he wouldn't give it to me, but he still kind of jabbing him on that one. But I have two brothers, so he didn't really know how to deal with it. So and he couldn't get in and out of it anymore, so he sold it.
Another good question. Don't tell me. Let me guess. So I don't want to pass over you being with the Historical Society. But what you're a car guy? I'm guessing Porsche 911.
You got it. Yep. I've had a lot of different stuff. I mean, you name it, I've probably had it. I've had a lot of cars. So I don't know. I mean, I have not owned my own Corvette. My dad's had a few Corvettes. I've owned a couple 911s. I currently do not have anything. I've got a Kia Stinger GT right now. That's what my daily driver is. So I need to have 4 doors. I need to have enough seats for all my kids and my wife. So, I had a 911. I sold it last year. So it actually fit. I built the layout. So when I could drive the 911 in the garage and it fit underneath the layout. So,
wow. Perfect.
Yeah. So it was great. So I still have that room in there, although I'm thinking about adding a Helix on another level. So the car may not be able to fit in there much longer, but, I've had a good amount of cars. So
it's okay to have a Kia and a 911 at the same time.
It is okay. I was quite happy for a little while I had both of those. But I loved that car, but I wasn't driving it enough, and we had another baby, and I was like,
you got to be responsible.
Let's let it go.
You got to be responsible.
Yeah, a little responsible for a little while at least. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let me ask you a key Porsche question.
Yeah.
Porsche question.
There you go. Yep. Uh-huh.
This is key to me. This tells me a lot about who I'm talking to.
Okay. I'm scared. I'm a little scared now. I haven't heard this question on the podcast.
No, you've never heard. You may have heard me talk about it by the time you hear yourself on the podcast, but because I was talking about it to somebody, the Boxster. Personally, I think it's a great car, but it's a chick car.
I'm gonna have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a.
But Lionel, the Cayman is not. The
Cayman is not. I'm talking strictly the Boxster.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. It's a very beautiful car, and the newer ones are fantastic to drive. But I would buy the Cayman.
Yeah, like
in a heartbeat over the Boxster.
Not for a girl, it is a great car. But we had several years, 3 or 4 years, were at my local golf course, where we had several prominent gentlemen in town, 4 or 5. They all started buying Boxsters and were excited that they owned Porsches. And finally one day I had to say to them, "Yeah, that's a girl's car."
What do you mean it's a girl's car?
Yeah.
My argument there is, you always go hardtop. You always go
absolutely.
Hardtop. You always go hardtop. It will hold more value. You look at any sports car. The hardtops always hold their value more than convertibles. Almost always. Now, maybe in some of the older muscle cars and stuff, they might not. But hardcore sports cars, especially German or something like that, gotta go hardtop.
You gotta go hardtop. And also, the 911 is the 911. And a Porsche is a great car, and you're right. The other, what you call it? How do you say it?
Cayman.
The Cayman, yeah. The Cayman is also a great car.
Yeah. Because
it looks like the traditional 911.
Right.
But a Boxster, it looks great with a girl in it. Yeah. A 911 looks great with a girl in it, and a Boxster looks great with a girl in it. But it does not look good with a 55-year-old gentleman who's trying to look cool. Sorry.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
You always go hard top. You always go hard top.
Yeah. And the 911 is such a classic car.
Oh yeah. It's beautiful cars, and they don't change a whole lot. You know.
Yeah.
I've known a couple different ones, and they drive the same. They look a little different, but it's always it's kind of the same feel. The light front end and engine in the back, and
still see lots of them racing in all the sports car races.
That's right. Yeah.
Giant gummies on the back.
Yep.
Okay, so tell me about being in the. When were you involved with the Historical Society, the KD?
So I started around probably when I started to get back into model railroading. I met the gentleman I named, Steel Craver, and then a friend of his, Pat Coughlin, who's passed away now. But they encouraged me to join, so I joined, and I was a member for. It was actually a pretty short amount of time, but I started going to the meets every year. They had a yearly meet, maybe once every year. 2 years or twice a year, sometimes. And this was probably in the early 2000s. And then I started to get more involved, and they wanted me to run for president. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll run for president. So, with these meets, there's not a whole lot of people that come to the meets. The Katy, it's not like the Santa Fe or something where it's a huge following, but the Katy still has a lot of loyal, followers, employees. And of course, the Katy, the business office was here in Dallas. So there's a lot of former railroad employees around Dallas. And Denison was a crew change point. That's where they did all the operations and stuff came out of Denison back in the day. So Denison is due north from Dallas, right across the Red River between Oklahoma and Texas. So Denison is straight up US 75. And they had a railroad historical museum, the Katy Railroad Historical Society. Well, not the society, but there was an MKT railroad museum there, and it was floundering. It was kind of faltering. There's a couple cabooses up there, Katy cabooses, and then there's a old F unit that was converted into pretty much a slug. It had a door on the nose that the shops did in Parsons, Kansas. There was a door. You look like you could walk in through the nose of that engine. It became a slug, powered slug, and it's called the 401B. Well, it's up in Denison still. Well, the museum was not doing well, so I got involved and ended up helping, kind of bringing the local community there together with the Historical Society. And I remember I was on the news and stuff there locally, and we raised enough money to try to get the museum back up and running and kind of saved it. It's been doing pretty well. Stuff like they repainted the engine and stuff like that. So, I was really pretty active for several years. And then, like I said, family changes and stuff, and I had to go away for a little while. But I was president for, oh my goodness, 2 or 3 years, something like that. But I'm still listed in the board of directors as a past president and all that. But I still try to get to the meets when I can. It was really hard for me because the meets are always, in the springtime on a weekend, and I work weekends. So it's always hard for me to get time off to go to the meets, unless I have vacation saved up. But even if I don't have vacation, I can ask to be rotated out. But if it's a classical weekend, they'll just tell you flat out no. So it was getting harder for me to go to the meets and stuff. But yeah, I was the president for a few years. And it's a great group of guys. They care a lot about the railroad. There's not much left of the Katy, unfortunately. The depot in Denison is still there. The car shops in Parsons, Kansas, where they did all the work on the diesels, is still there. It's got a private company in there now. There's still some depots left, but a lot of the trackage has either been ripped up or it's been taken over by the UP.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not a whole bunch left, because when a Class 1 railroad like the UP comes in, they're going to take all that out as quick as they can and replace it with all UP stuff.
So do you have a rough idea of how many members there might be?
I'd need to look that up. I should know that. I would say it's a few hundred, maybe 300.
Okay.
Across the country. Our meets will usually have, oh my goodness, 75 people, maybe 50 to 75 people, something like that. It just depends on the meet, where it is, and time of the year. But I always have a great time. We'll usually have a guest speaker, a prominent operations person usually, or ex-engineer, conductor, or somebody like that. We'll do a banquet talk, and we'll stay up late, look at slides, and we'll just talk. And then we'll usually do a train ride in whatever town we're in. If we can arrange that with the local short line or something, because usually there's a short line running on some ex-Katy trackage, or we'll tour an old, passenger car or something. There's usually something left that we can go look at and take pictures, but it's always a nice time. I really enjoy it. I would say my passion is mostly in model railroading for sure, but I love, if you want to do model railroading really well and you want to learn about the railroad you're modeling, you really got to read a lot and you got to study, and especially if you're not a railroader, if you're a musician like me,
right?
It's kind of like, okay, I gotta learn this, like signaling. I kind of, I'm kind of a mouth breather, drooler when it comes to signaling. I'm just like, it's way over my head, man. I got to learn this. But, it's stuff like that, or some of the advanced JMRI stuff. I'm just like, okay,
sure.
So.
But then you belong to the club so that, and people can help you that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think the connections are what make the hobby special. Meeting other people, meeting people that have strengths in certain areas. I like to think I have more strengths in, scenery or something like that. And other people have strengths in JMRI or installing decoders.
Okay. So I want to, so you talked about with your layout, what size is it?
So I've got a split garage. I've got a 2 and a 1. So it's in the 1.
Okay.
And it's around the walls. It's about 11 by 22.
Okay, cool. So does it have a lift out section to get in the inside? Or
no, it's just a little duck under. The layout's pretty high up. It's about 55 inches up.
Okay.
Something like that. So I'm about 5'10", 5'11", and it's up to my chest.
So how did you decide what were you exposed to? Because I mean, the old days layouts were down at the 40-inch mark and even some lower. And what was it that you were exposed to that when you started this layout, you knew you wanted to build it higher?
Yeah, well, mine was basically out of necessity, right? Because I was still pulling that car in there, so
right.
I needed to be low enough. What I did was I have all the bench work going around the walls, just supported on some metal L brackets. And then where the garage door is, I put some metal L brackets on one corner, and then I just ran 3/4 inch plywood across that span with some splining. And then I brought down a metal, kind of a piece of metal, corrugated metal that's got, I don't think it's corrugated, but it's like garage door metal.
Sure, yeah.
And I hung it from the garage door track. So it's suspended, so there's no legs over that portion of the layout, so I could drive the car in and out when I wanted to. So this was mainly, although I have to tell you, I do like it at this height because it almost feels like you're at human level looking at the trains.
Yeah.
And then I've got room now. If I want to put something lower, I can put something lower where I can sit on a stool or a chair. And I was thinking about doing a yard on the second level, big classification yard, and I can build my trains and then take them up on the helix and run them on the top level. So that's kind of my plan right now. But, for talking about, JMRI or installing decoder helix, that's a whole other thing that I'm going to have to farm out because I'm not a carpenter.
But you're enough of a carpenter that you built bench work.
Well, sort of. I farmed some of that out, but yes, I did build some of it. A carpenter, I am not. I'm good with the electronics and installing track and stuff, but bench work is.
I was going to say get Chris Atkins to help with the helix, but he just got his and rolled it into his building. So
yeah, exactly.
Prefab. Yeah, that may be what I need to do too.
You've probably been to his train show more than once.
I've met Chris one time at a train show. He lives in Argyle, which is pretty far away from here. I live just north of Dallas a little bit. I bet he is an hour to an hour and a half west of where I am. I mean, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is so freaking big.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes forever to get to one side or the other.
Okay, let's try that statement again. He lives in Argyle, which is...
Well, that's home of the Sox.
The Fighting Sox.
Fighting Sox, that's right.
There you go.
There we go.
So what is it that's going to push you over the edge to finally decide to build a helix? Like, how close are you to that?
I'm pretty close, I have to say. What I have there right now is a small yard, and it just sucks. It's not big enough. It's not. I can't really put enough cars where I want to. So I think I'm going to rip out that yard and the staging area and scenic it up, put a few new industries, and then have a helix going down to the second level. So,
do you go to any home operating sessions?
I haven't. I know there's a few in town. We've got some great layouts in Dallas Fort Worth. There's some really spectacular ones in Austin, south of here.
Yes,
that I've heard about. Cat Mountain, Santa Fe, and some other ones.
Tommy Bolt's down there.
Yeah.
Austin is kind of a hotbed for model railroading.
Yeah, it's funny because there's not really any big train stores down there. We really have one great train store in the whole state, and I think just with the lack of basements and the sunny weather here,
yeah,
it's a little slower to catch on compared to some other areas in the United States and Canada.
But just the same, I think Austin is a fairly. There's a lot of layouts in the Texas area, actually.
There are, yeah. A lot of us mail order.
Yeah.
A lot of us mail order.
So where is this store that you speak of?
Oh, this is Discount Model Trains in Addison, Texas. So it's a pretty good store. They have a pretty good stock. They always seem to be winning that Model Railroader Award for the Southwest.
Okay, and where's Addison, Texas?
Stores. So Addison is a funny place. It's this little city surrounded by Dallas, and it's in the middle kind of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There's an airport there. It's a private airport for the rich people to fly in and out of. But it's basically an airport with a lot of retail and some businesses and stuff. And so it's smack dab in the middle of Dallas-Fort Worth, I'd say. Almost.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's about 15 minutes from where I live, so it's pretty convenient.
Wait, what about? Okay, just finish up. So your wife is also in the symphony.
She is, yeah.
So did you meet her at the symphony?
Yeah, we met. So
what do you do? Like you go, hey, I like the way you play.
I distinctly remember telling her she had come to the orchestra after I did,
right?
And I remember her sitting in the lounge. And I just went up to her and introduced myself and said, "Hey, I'm really, really happy you're here. Welcome. We're really glad you're here." And
right.
We talked a little bit, and then went out with a group of people after concerts, which musicians will do. We'll go out and throw back a few beers and get some pizza or something, and we just hit it off. And
cool.
So
because our buddy Dave Abelese, he was just the creepy. He was the creepy train guy.
Yes, I remember that story. Yeah,
you were the creepy horn guy.
I was not stalking her on any trains. Sorry, Dave. No, that was a sweet story he talked about. I just met her, and a few years later we got married, and then we've had 2 kids. So
there you go. That's great. That's a cool story. Yeah. David, I'm very glad you came. How did you? I think I asked you in Springfield, but remind us, how did you find the podcast?
Well, I remember. I think I was going to the Apple Podcast app, and I just typed in Model Railroad podcast, and yours was the first to come up. I'd listened to some of the other ones. They're not as good. This is the best one. And started listening to them. I went through the whole list because there's not, it only goes back so far. So I burned through all those, and you had talked about Patreon. I said, all right, I'm joining Patreon. So I joined Patreon, and I've been trying to catch up with those, but I'm a little behind. I have to say, even though I'm not working right now, taking care of all the kids right now is keeping me busy.
Well, sure it would be
during the day, but I'm trying to catch up. I've listened to a few recently, some of the Hug It Out episodes and stuff. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I really enjoy them. They're great. They're great to hear about other guys all around the country and in the world, and really enjoy it. It's a really, really cool thing.
I think
it's safe to say you enjoyed it right from the start, unlike our friend Rod Deering, who gave up after 5 minutes and turned it off and then got bored and came back later.
Yeah.
It was, I will admit, it took me a little bit, but once I got in, when you start in the middle of something, it's a little hard to catch on, but once you catch on, you're good.
Yeah.
It's like binge watching on Netflix, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I just started Ozark, which is this kind of like a mix between The Sopranos meets Oh my goodness, I don't even know, but it's really great. Oh, like Narcos, the cartel.
Okay,
so
all right, yeah.
It's like The Sopranos meets Narcos. So I've been binge watching that this month during this time off.
So
I know you mentioned Lionel. You mentioned The Wire. That's my next one. I'm starting on.
Yeah, that was Tracy Boyd. That's her fault. She got me started on that. And I've already watched it once, but it's a great show. It's really one of the best, and it's at a cool time actually because it's the very early part of the century, and so there's still cell phones are just becoming they're still either flip phones, and they're just becoming part of mainstream society. So it's actually a pretty neat time. It's really neat to go back and you'll watch shows from the 90s, and you're thinking, well, why didn't he just call him on his cell phone?
Yeah, exactly.
This is I am super glad that you made the effort. To everybody out there, it's really important that if you listen to the podcast and you're thinking you want to be on the podcast, make sure you stick your hand out and say hi or send in an email, because Dave Abelys, that's the way we got in contact with him, and Rich Wazinski, who is those guys at the New Jersey Transit, and you, and there's lots of people that say, hey, I listen to podcasts, and then away you go from there, because I think pretty much it's such a great hobby. The people in the hobby is what, like, this has been a great interview. Been a lot of fun talking to you about model railroading, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you about your profession of being a professional musician in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra.
Well, thanks, Lionel. I've had a great time. It's really nice to meet you guys and chat with you a little bit more. I look forward to speaking to you again sometime.
Yeah, and I look forward to coming and watching you. Actually, I'm actually putting that near. I'm going to put that on the list of things that's got to happen, because that would be a lot.
Free tickets.
Yeah,
free
absolutely.
Tickets. Both of you guys bring whoever you want. Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun to go to
trip down there for the Chris and Speed and.
Well, yeah, do that, or he's going to be in Carnegie Hall. That would be.
You're going to be Carnegie Hall, yeah.
All us Texans. That's right. We're a friendly group.
Yeah. So is the show different every week, or is it like it's the same for a month and then you change?
No, it's different every week. New repertoire every week.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
some weeks, Lionel, we'll do three different sets of repertoire. I mean, it's crazy.
And how much rehearsal time is put in?
It just depends. So our rehearsals are Tuesday morning, 10 to 12:30. With a 20-minute break, and then Wednesday 10 to 12:30 with a 20-minute break. Wednesday 2 to 4 with a 15-minute break. Thursday morning 10 to 12:30 with a 20-minute break, and then 4 concerts. So not a lot of rehearsal time.
So you're guaranteed Monday off.
Generally, yeah. Sometimes we have to work Monday, but if they do that, then they give us another day or two off somewhere else in the week.
Wow.
But generally, industry-wide, Monday is orchestra day off.
And turns out the lead horn is the guy that's in charge of getting the beer, just like in a hockey team.
I actually am the beer guy in our orchestra.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What's the desired beer of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra?
Well, I probably can't talk too much about
it. All right. Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you off air.
Yeah. Don't bother. Yeah. That's okay. I'm fine with that. That's cool. All right. I think we pretty much covered it, Bruce?
It's been very interesting indeed.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming up and saying hi. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, because I want people to write us this time and let us know what their favorite symphony or piece of classical music is that would maybe feature horn parts that David would play. So please write to us, Modeler's Life. Modelers with 1L @gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a website, modelerslife.com. And you go there and you're going to find out all kinds of stuff about the podcast. And you can go to and then you can click on Patreon and sign up there. What do you think about Patreon, David? Is it worth it?
It's been great. I need to change my subscription to the next level, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's after the legs picture.
Yeah.
He's after the t-shirt, the maroon t-shirt. That's going to be very popular.
I need the t-shirt.
Hey, you know what you need to do, Lionel? You need to do a legs t-shirt.
Nah, I don't think so. No. Let's give everybody a little break on that. I mean, come on. Let's help society. So, David, one last question. To me, ever since I started doing this podcast, the hobby seems to me like it's way bigger than anybody realizes. Do you ever get that sense?
absolutely. I mean, it's huge. I meet people all the time that I had no idea they were into that.
Yeah.
It's big. I mean, I think it's going to grow. I mean, it's going to continue to grow, and as it gets more animated, it's just going to bring more people back to it. I think you're going to see more and more people come back to things other than electronics, other than their phones or their TV. They're going to want to connect in different ways, and I think and our phones and computers have helped the hobby too, because we're all able to talk to each other now online on the forums and stuff. So
yeah, well, you've heard me say that 1,000 times, and I'm convinced of that before. I'm starting to think that things like structure building and kit building are going to come back in a few years when people realize, they can show off their work to each other. I think that's a big part of it too. Yeah. I really do. I think the hobby's going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo. So now, do you know what to say right at the very end of the show?
I do.
Wow, look at this guy. He's off.
He's studied.
He's a player.
He's a player, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let me find. For some reason or other, this one doesn't roll off my tongue, and it's only been this. You'll be like episode 155 or 152 or something like that. And you'd think after 150 some odd times it would just completely roll off my tongue, but there's a little more to it. There's a bit of an emphasis, and you got to hit just the right notes. So, do you and your wife practice together?
No, not really. No. Sometimes we'll do chamber music together.
Cool.
Yeah, but no, not so much.
You know what we need, don't you, Bruce?
No.
We need our very own AML violin and French.
Oh, you know what we could do? Yeah, well, you know what we usually use for the when we do a super fan. Maybe we could get David to provide us with some horn music to use for the super fan.
Yeah, there you go.
We did. Yeah, I've got some recordings of myself, but I've got we did a CD. I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. It's called Texas Horns, and it's the horn sections of the Dallas and Houston symphonies together. We did a CD.
That'd be cool.
You can buy it on Amazon. It's on there. You can see me in a cowboy hat in the front cover. But all of us are. It's a very virtuosic CD. We did some John Williams on there and some other stuff. It's 12 horns doing all kinds of going all over the instrument. So you can check that out.
The Texas Horns. There you are.
Texas Horns. That's it. Yep.
Yeah. Hook 'em horns.
There you go.
Are you forced to be a fan of any of the Texas University teams, or are you still Penn State?
No. All my uncles went to Pitt.
Oh, okay.
No, I went to Baylor and SMU, so those are my schools in Texas. So I went to.
And we never even got to talk to you about being. You're also a professor with Southern Methodist University.
I am. Yep. I have a great group of students there. I have a private studio of high school aged and middle school aged students here in my house they're just wonderful kids. And then I've got one of the horn professors at SMU, and I've got a wonderful horn studio there too. So I love playing in the orchestra, but my passion is teaching the horn to these kids. They're just so inspiring, and it's my favorite part of my week.
All right. And how many hours a week would you spend doing that?
About 10 hours.
All right.
Yeah.
And it must be fun when you to teach and people that are excited to learn and all that.
Yeah. I mean, you'll have high school kids that'll go on and they'll get into the most prestigious horn schools in the nation,
Right.
And you've helped them get there, or they'll get into the National Youth Orchestra or this or that summer festival if they're in college, or the college kids go off and they win jobs in professional orchestras. It's very, very special.
Okay. I got one last question I'm going to ask you that I've often wondered about. It's kind of a waving the stick question. Is it when you're able to master an instrument as well as you can master an instrument as well as you have, are you able to not necessarily well, but are you able to pick up other instruments and play them?
That's a negative. I had to take class piano in college, and I had zero piano before I went to college. And I actually had a petition signed in my undergraduate to reduce the number of semesters you had to take class piano if you were a performance major. And I got the requisite number of signatures, and I took it to the dean of the School of Music, and they changed the requirements because I had a point that it takes so much time to perfect one instrument that, it's kind of like you can do one or none. You can be talented and be able to play other instruments, but it's hard to diversify. It's not like your 401k.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming that playing in a symphony orchestra, it's obviously different playing in a symphony orchestra than it is playing in a honky tonk band.
Unfortunately, the pay doesn't reflect this all the time, but yeah, I mean.
Well, and I mean, it's different in a sense that it's a different.
Well, it's like being a fiddler or a professional orchestral a classical violinist, right? It's different. The fiddlers, a lot of times, they learn by ear.
Yeah.
But you look at them play, and my wife would say, "Oh my gosh, look at his technique; it's awful."
Yeah, exactly.
How he holds the violin or something. But it's amazing what they can do as fiddlers because they learn it, but they're taught in a different way. Like classical musicians.
Yeah, their music has different genres. Both two different people can make different kinds of music, and it's a different discipline altogether.
Right.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
I can hardly wait to come. Man, that is good. I'm putting that on my list, man.
Let's do it.
That'd be a fun thing.
You're welcome anytime.
All right. Well, David, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy Rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.